The video you are about to watch is from an old woodworking magazine that I published during the years of 2003 to approximately 2006. This was a very unique magazine. It was purely video content and it was distributed on DVDs. The magazine ran for approximately 3.5 years, and then due to financial concerns, we simply had to terminate the magazine. We moved on to other things over the last roughly 15 years. However, there has been a request to resurrect this content, so I've gone through the trouble to get the equipment, the products, everything I needed in order to bring this content back to life to share with everyone. Here on this YouTube channel, we'll be putting up approximately 100 to 120 of the original stories that appeared in that magazine. The magazine was called Woodworking at Home Magazine, and it was truly one of a kind in the world. I really hope you enjoy these videos, and please tell your friends about them.
Welcome to A Turn for the Better. I'm Dick Singh. Today we're going to be discussing chatter tools and chatter work. Chatter tools produce a harmonic vibration which cuts a decorative pattern to make a bland object look a little bit better. Everything that you do with a chatter tool dictates what happens to the pattern. There's only one sure thing about chatter work, and that is there is no guarantee as to what you're going to get. It ranges anywhere from the wood, the speed of your lathe, the length that your chatter tool is exposed, the direction that you go, how much pressure you apply. In other words, everything, including your mother's hat size, has something to do with the pattern. The chatter tool itself is very simple. It's basically just a pipe, a heavy pipe, set screw holding a spring steel cutter head. It just is very, very simple. It's made to create harmonic vibrations. Today, I'm going to be using basically diamond wood, but I did bring some maple along, which will also take a nice detail. Now, one of the things that you really do need is for the material to be very dense. Now, this particular piece is face grain, and it will not take a chatter very well at all. And we will show you what happens in a little bit. The diamond wood, the end grain on the maple, they will take fine chatter work. We will show you how to work this, and believe me, everything matters. First off, let's explain the tool a little bit. This cutting head or cutter is held in by a set screw, and you can move it in, out, and yes, it does make a big difference. As we go along, I'll change this a little bit just to show you what happens. Right now I'm going to set it at roughly 1 1/8 inches from the end of the tool. I don't feel it has to be razor sharp. In fact, I think it's sometimes not best to have it razor sharp because it will tear up the wood too much. I think it's better to let the tool do its job. The first thing I'm going to do is take my scraper. This is a scraper, not a skew. I just use it as a very fine scraper. It approaches at an angle where I am below my center line, which allows my cutting edge to be 90 degrees to the surface. It's not meant to take a lot of material, it's meant to take a nice fine surface. You do need a smooth surface. If you are going to take and have this for keeps rather than just me showing you how to do this, sand that surface. If you think you're going to hide any of the cheddar or imperfections in your work with the cheddar work, you're mistaken. It's not going to come out right. You want that surface finished the best that it can be so that your cheddar work will stand out. Okay, I'm going to pull this back about 2 inches. That'll put me just a little below center line, and the tip is going to be pointed down. Now I like to put a little pressure on that tool rest just to ensure that the vibration comes through fine. Now, listen as it starts, it's going to be quieter in the center than it is on the outside. Some real fine sandpaper, I got 600. Just lightly to burnish the surface. That will make your pattern look even more pronounced. Okay, there's a few things that we could see right here. Now, you see this mark here? That was one of my hesitations. Here's another hesitation. Well, let's take and erase this. So I'm going to bring my eraser out. Starting the tool can be a problem until you understand just how it works. Put your tool up to the workpiece and just push it straight forward in until it starts to vibrate. Now start moving. Again. I can't tell you how much pressure to put on there. That's something you have to feel. But it has to be solid enough that it cuts into the material and light enough to allow the tool to chatter. This time I'm going to speed the lathe up. I'm basically going to make the same cut again. On our previous pattern, we were at roughly 2,000 RPMs. Now I'm roughly at 2,400 RPMs. The chatter work is more pronounced, it's larger than it was with the slower speed. Let's play a little more with the tool. This time I'm going to extend the cutter head out a little bit. Now I have it out at roughly 1.25 inches versus 1.125 inches the time before. I'm going to leave the lathe at the same speed, which is roughly 2,400. I'm going to make the same pattern, basically, that I did before, that I should say the same movements. Voila, we have another pattern again. Let me erase this one and we'll try another one. Okay, I'm going to leave the cutter head at the same as what I had, only instead of starting at the inside, I'm going to start at the outside and go inward. Again, a different pattern. Now, this, and this was from me. I lost my smooth movement. It doesn't look bad. In fact, I think it looks kind of neat, but I was not smooth all the way across. My movements were erratic, which caused those different patterns in there. This time I'm going to show you something a little different. The inside I'm going to bring from the center out, and the outside from the outside in, and show you what happens then. Now I have slowed the lathe down back to around 2,000 RPMs. Now if you look on the outside where I came from the outside in, all these patterns are counterclockwise. And if you look at the inside where I came from the inside out, they're basically clockwise. So there's another little trick that you can apply to make these two contrast each other. Now we've shown what happens when we go from the outside in, inside out, and they've all been basically 90 degrees across, a little below center line. This time I'm going to start down the bottom at an angle and bring it up. Again, we have a totally different pattern. It's not near as pronounced as it was when the cutter head had a bigger chance of vibrating. Coming up this way, it kind of stifled it a little in my feelings, which made it not as aggressive. Let's go back to that 90 degrees again. Now I have it slowed down to roughly 2,000 RPMs. It's a little more pronounced than it was the other way. So your different types of woods, everything is going to change. Well, seeing how we're using this, I can kind of give a little bit of an explanation as to why things are happening. Again, notice the difference in here. That was me, strictly because I lost the pressure as it went in, and I could not maintain the same pressure all the way on account of the surface speed. This time, let's extend this just a little more. At this point, it's roughly 1 3/8 inches, which will produce, again, another pattern. If you notice, the pattern is much finer than it was with the cutter head being shorter. I'm going to put the cutter head back where I normally like it, somewhere between 1 1/8 and 1 1/4 inches. That normally seems to work pretty good for me, but that doesn't mean that it will for you. For the simple reason, however much pressure you put on it, how fast your movements are, and again your mother's hat size all play into this. I've increased my speed to roughly 2100. I've got a little more extended out on here, and I'm going to apply a little more pressure than I did before. As you can see on the outside, again, it's much more pronounced because of the surface speed and also the more pressure I put on it. Actually, I kind of like the lighter touch with a little slower speed. Let me redo this, and I'll use a slower speed and a little lighter pressure. Now I'm just going in, and I'm going to go from the outside or inside to the outside. I'm going to try and make it in one nice movement with a little less pressure than I had before. To me, it produces a little nicer pattern. Okay, again, these patterns in here were thrown in by my lack of smooth movement all the way across. One of the things I like to do, instead of trying to make a pattern the full pass at one time, which is kind of difficult, I like to take and use this method. I'll start at the inside, then I'll make another pass, possibly from the other direction, and then maybe another one from the original direction. Okay, this is kind of neat in the sense that where this started, it left a very uniform chatter to begin with. Now, on the inside, I don't really care for that. It's not as uniform and precise as I would like it to be because it didn't start nice. So what I'll do is just take a little V scraper. I'll go into that little area right where I started and make an incisive mark. As long as I've got that one, I'm going to do this one also. And the same as the where I started originally. I put just a little finish on this just to get rid of the dust and show you what it really looks like. Of course, it doesn't stand out quite as much as it did with the dust in there, but when you get up close to it, it's very, very neat. I've put a piece of hard maple end grain in the chuck. I'll take and make a pattern on that just to show you the differences between diamond wood and regular wood. As you can see, it's much finer. This is around here is rather unique. It's just a different pattern again. Now, could I produce what I had on the diamond wood? Probably come close to it, but I'm going to have to vary my pressure. I'm going to have to vary my length of my tool. I might have to vary the speed of the lathe. I may even have to go check my mother's hat size. But the main thing I'm trying to get across, you can get decent patterns, but you are going to have to think about them. You're going to have to try them. It's not going to produce these patterns for you. I've put a piece of face grain hard maple in here. Notice the way the grain is running this way. So this is actually the face where the last piece was end grain. As you can see, that's all tore up. Now in this area, the wood is closer together, the grain, and you have pretty much of a pattern. Again, here you lose everything. So that is the reason that you want to use end grain, because you need the density of the wood to take the chatter pattern. Okay, just to basically do a little bit of wrap up here. The tool, relatively cheap. You can buy them just about anywhere. Could probably even make your own without too much problem. Vary the length of your tip. Try that. Try the sharpness. Don't get it too sharp. Try it sharp. Maybe it'll work for you. When it comes to wood, you're going to want a dense wood, such as end grain, diamond wood. Togwa nut works fine. Some of your plastics, even some metal, will take a chatter pattern. So don't hinder yourself by not trying different materials. When it comes to making your pattern, start that tool, let it start to vibrate before you move. Your speed of your lathe, it's going to make a difference. Vary it. Make sure your tool rest is smooth. Try it a little higher, a little lower. Just try anything that you can think of. Now, everything that I do may not work for you. My movements might be different. My touch might be different. You may have a heavier feel. I may have a lighter one. The only way you're ever going to find your pattern is try it. Put a piece of scrap in that chuck. Just play. Take out your scraper or gouge and erase the pattern. Go in and do it. If you're going to take and have it on a finished piece of work, sand your surface smooth. Get it finished before you ever try to put chatter work on it. The chatter work is not going to hide anything. It's going to make it even worse. When you're done, take a light piece of sandpaper and lightly buff it to make the surface shine. Yes, the main thing about this whole tool is you are going to have to think. It's not going to produce patterns for you. It's going to produce the pattern, but you're the one that's going to have to hold it and control it. I hope we have shed just a little bit of light on chatter work for you. Dick Singh saying thank you.
I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you truly enjoyed it, please help us share this information with the rest of the communities. Please hit the subscribe button, give us a big thumbs up, and be sure to tell your friends about this channel. Thanks again for watching.